The State of the Union address actually, I think, was an important event this year, mainly because going into this event, we had a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace. The popularity of Obama was falling a little bit. There seemed to be many of the bills, the healthcare reform, the economic, the tax on the banking community was sort of controversial, and essentially there were some questions around whether or not Obama was losing much of his sort of political following. And I think the State of the Union address was also important or well watched because Obama, shortly before the State of the Union address, a few days before, there was sort of talk of a spending freeze for 3 years. And the markets were a little concerned about that because obviously if the market isn't being stimulated by government spending, there was concern that that might push the market into an otherwise sort of weaker state. So therefore, a lot of traders were watching this address to try and get a sense of where the president was going on some of these issues. And I think in the final analysis, he did about as good a job as you could expect, given the scenario in the marketplace. With regard to the spending freeze for 3 years, this doesn't start till 2011, so it's not really a spending freeze if it doesn't happen for for basically a year, because you can ramp up spending this year and sort of start the spending freeze with a high cap. And a year is a long time to sort of change policy. However, so I think the markets were sort of comforted or calmed by that reality to some degree. Also, it was a more central tone than Obama's had in the past. He talked about the banking sector to some degree and ended up basically essentially communicating that he wasn't out to get the banks, he's just trying to recoup some of the money. The actual punitive tax that he's applying to the banking sector is not going to really sink that industry, and really it has a little bit more to do with politics than anything else. With regard to sort of the meeting of the minds in Washington, Obama really sort of put an appeal out to the Republicans and the Democrats to work together on these bills and try and have some constructive lawmaking accomplished. And that's really been a challenge, I think, in the past few months because the politics in Washington has become quite polarized. So all in all, I believe was a good address for the markets in general. We saw the markets calmed to some degree, and today, we really didn't get the bounce I think that we've been looking for, but the tumble in the commodity markets and the stock market seems to come to somewhat of a halt, and I think that we're sort of overdue for that bounce or that climb in the market.
There has also been a lot of uncertainty around the reconfirmation of Ben Bernanke. Now, how has the market been dealing with this issue?
Yeah, that's also been a huge level, created a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace. The markets always want to know who's in charge, who's making the rules, because you can't trade if you don't know who is, managing the switches. And Bernanke, regardless of what you think of him as a monetary policy decision maker, he really at least is consistent in his willingness to print money, and so traders can sort of establish their trades, knowing that generally with money printing there's potential for inflation in the future. The money printing results in a greater amount of growth in the stock market. So therefore, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. And I think that essentially once this situation is sort of in the past, then we will be able to get some clarity in the marketplace. Basically, the Bernankes, I know that sort of coming into the end of the day here, I was actually preparing for the webinar, so didn't see how the vote actually went. No one really actually believed that Bernanke wouldn't be reconfirmed. However, it is also being a platform for politics, and the politics in the case of Bernanke are not very good for the market. You have politicians talking about how horrible the economy is and why Bernanke should be removed. Well, that gets into the marketplace and makes people think, oh yeah, we should be terrified that the economy is falling apart, so therefore sell the stock market, sell the commodities, and go into U.S. cash. So that's basically hopefully come to a close today, and moving into next week we will have a few of these sort of major issues behind us.